Welcome to podcast 43. Yes, 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 maybe, but yes.
Welcome back to podcast 43, the podcast about movies, starring myself, Fulton Collins, and Chris Borg. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I've just been reading all about Werner Herzog this week for a paper. But
Nice.
it's been pretty fun.
Werner Horse. I think you mispronounced Woody Allen, but I'll let that one slide this time.
Oh, you know me too well. Yeah, it's
No, that's great, man.
yeah. How about you, Fulton?
It's okay. We're me and Chris are in the middle of finals week right now, or however you want to look at it. I had one of my finals last week went well. Got two more finals this week, so I'm pretty excited to be done. I'm pretty excited to go back to my summer film ethic, as in watch a movie every day, because I loved doing it last summer.
You can never
I'm gonna
top
try.
Greg Turkington's Guinness World Record of 500 movies in 500 days, though.
That is a truly hard thing to go after, but I'm gonna try. Not the 500, but I've got two challenges going on right now. Watch a film every day, and the Dudes Rock 69-day action film challenge, which I've talked a little bit before on. That's just
Yeah.
a dumb action movie / just dumb movies in general. So I'm gonna try and get pretty varied on it. I'm gonna try and watch good movies on my one a day, and then have my dumb reaction movies as well. But what have you been watching in the past week?
Well, I've been watching. I did watch a Woody Allen movie this week.
Mhm. How many
I
do you
got.
have left? Just out of pure curiosity.
Okay, let's see. How many
Not
Woody
not to
Allen?
not to derail you too far.
I have. Like. How many? 26 left. Yeah.
All right, so
So.
we got 20 more. We got 26 episodes left of the podcast, and then it is ending forever. You heard it here first.
Yeah, that's right. The only thing that's keeping this podcast afloat is Woody Allen's filmography. But I watched Sleeper, which was one of his straight up comedies from the early 70s, probably his most well known, I would say. And it's funny. It's very funny. It's just basically Woody Allen gets transported to the future and hijinks ensue. And he does funny jokes and he makes funny faces, and Diane Keaton's there too. And there's a lot of funny technology jokes, like how everybody in the future doesn't smoke weed. They just touch this metal orb and get really high. I thought that was really funny. But it's not Annie Hall. It's not Manhattan. It's not even Deconstructing Harry or Hannah and Her Sisters or Blue Jasmine, but it's a good movie. And that's it's probably his 12th best, which is still really good.
Speaking of Deconstructing Harry, does Tobey Maguire, does he just have like a side character role, or is he like a main character?
Tobey Maguire is a very small role in Deconstructing Harry.
Okay.
He's only in the movie for like a few minutes.
Okay.
So his scene is pretty funny.
Okay. Because I think no, I'll get to that later.
Yeah.
I didn't watch too many movies this week, but I just wanted to rattle off my two really quick. Watch Surf's Up from 2007, a movie from my childhood. It's pretty fun. I think it plays with the documentary / mockumentary style pretty well. I don't know if I have too much to say other than it's a light watch and it's fun. I think it still holds up. But because we like to keep up with current films, I watched Tom Clancy's Without Remorse, which is the new Amazon Prime / Michael B. Jordan vehicle. Uh, I don't want to go on for too long about it, but I do have some things that I wanted to say about it. And I'm trying to remain constructive in my criticism. Um, so
Mhm.
excuse me if I do sound a little harsh. I always stand by my saying that everyone has room to grow. This doesn't have to be the end. Uh, Everyone can always grow as an artist and everything. This doesn't really. I'll just jump in. Um, I'll be honest. The movie feels a little flat in terms of everything. It's a movie that I think has a big budget, but not a big enough one to kind of do everything that they want. So they spent a lot of money on, maybe some of the actors or maybe, some of the visual effects. Because there are like a couple big like action set pieces in the film that are kind of cool. But um so I can see them spending a lot of money on visual effects, but then kind of lacking in the production design. And I thought the production design I think the production design could have been pushed a little bit more to kind of like build out these worlds, because a lot of the time, or to build out a lot of these rooms to kind of add more to the environment, because a lot of the time I found it to be kind of sparse, and they weren't super engaging. And unfortunately that kind of only um
Mhm.
something that was a part of it feeling kind of sparse was a lot of the camera work. I thought it kind of lacked variety, and kind of I thought it kind of lacked an overall really strong sense of like shot composition. And not that people were like in weird locations, it's just that there wasn't a lot of depth. So I felt like most of the time the shots weren't super engaging and the environments weren't super engaging. And unfortunately, with a lot of the dialogue, I didn't think the dialogue was too strong. And I have an example that I think is kind of funny, but I do want to highlight that I think the overall, story beats were good. Like I didn't have an issue with the story. I just didn't love the dialogue. But there's a scene in the beginning where Michael B. Jordan is talking to Jamie Hall or Jamie Bell, sorry. And Jamie Bell's like, okay, well, this is the dude we're going after. And Michael B. Jordan is like, really? Is that it? And then Jamie Hall is like, what are you, a comedian? And then one of the other like soldiers is like, no, he's a smart ass. Actually, I mean, he's a badass. And then
That's pretty funny.
I'm like, wait, what? And but yeah, I don't think Michael B. Jordan is necessarily bad in this film. I just don't think that with the dialogue not being super strong, there's not a lot for him to really like get in on. Um, and then I also thought with the cinematography, I didn't think the film was too visually pretty, with a lot of the color palette that they chose to do. And then I also thought that in the film also lacked a lot of visual tension in moments where it really needed it, but it does get better. But it gets better at building tension, but in the beginning it definitely isn't great. And then one last thing I wanted to add, I think there is an interesting philosophy, although kind of lately, added late to the movie, that is kind of interesting. I don't believe in it, but I think it's interesting for an enemy arc. But I'm just gonna spoil it really quick because I don't know really how many people are, but just skip ahead if you are wanting to see Without Remorse without spoilers. But there's this Secretary of State who sets up this entire conspiracy, and Michael B. Jordan's character, I don't remember his name, figures it out. And the Secretary of State is like, listen, um, during World War II, we had like the Nazis and like Japan to fight. And that boosted our economy and got us out of like the Great Depression, and he's like, well, now we need a new enemy, because if we don't have an enemy, we fight ourselves. That's like his whole kind of reasoning behind that. And so I think that is a somewhat interesting idea to play around with, although only added in the later end. And then, as much as I don't really like this critic, David Ehrlich, is that his name?
Yeah, early. Yeah, for
Or,
IndieWire. Yeah.
yeah, not that I don't like him. It's just that me and him don't see eye to eye. But it's whatever. Um, he adds a thing that I had not thought about before, that the Tom Clancy movies and stories are kind of outdated for modern era, because now it's more about like passwords and like hacking and stuff. But these are films that still operate with like the Cold War mindset, where it's all about like the Soviet versus US. And so I think if the film was put in a different era, like the 60s or 70s, maybe it would have benefited more. I don't know. It's an interesting idea to kind of think about, but I don't know why I picked this movie to have a ton of thoughts on, because it's an okay, it's all
It-
right.
I mean, it looks just like super generic. Like,
Yeah, I mean, ultimately you're not wrong.
mhm.
I don't think many people are going to be going to this movie.
Well, it's not even in theaters. I mean, like you just watch it on
Yeah.
Amazon. Yeah.
I think that's probably a better placement for it than the theaters, because I don't know how well it would have done in theaters. But I watched because I really like Michael B. Jordan.
Mhm.
But he's not slowing down. He's still got a ton of roles, and he's directing Creed 3, and so I don't really think this is gonna. I don't really think it's gonna hurt him too much. But like I said, there's always room to grow. Um, so yeah, those are my only two movies.
Well, I wanted to bring up a movie that you suggested to me a while ago that I actually watched with my girlfriend a few days ago. Earth Girls Are Easy.
Oh, well, I hadn't seen it, but I thought it would be fun to watch.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's I mean
That's
it's
funny,
fun.
because me and my girlfriend were gonna watch that one recently too.
Yeah, it's I would recommend it. You guys should watch it. It's very, I mean, it's very one note, but like it's a
Mhm.
good one note. It's Jeff Goldblum
Jim
and
Carrey.
Jim Carrey and Damon Wayans
Mhm.
uh are all like just these ridiculous aliens that speak uh nonsense. And then it's also a musical for some reason.
Why not?
I mean, yeah. So yeah, very very 80s picture.
Nice.
I think that the title song is very catchy too, and it's
Mhm.
also quite hard to find. Like it's not on Spotify or anything, but when you do watch it, you'll notice it will hit quite nice. And yeah, I mean that's really all I can say on Earth Girls Are Easy. Probably the best new thing I watched, because I had to rewatch Aguirre, The Wrath of God, but I feel like that's kind of in its own. That was like the third time I'd seen it, so it's kind of
Mhm.
in its own thing. But
It is a great movie.
yeah, it's so excellent. But I started the month off watching Melvin Van Peebles, Watermelon Man,
Mhm.
and this is an excellent piece of satire and social commentary. So it's basically, you know what it's about, right?
I did not, but I thought the poster was very nice.
Yeah, the poster is very cool.
But I had never heard of it before I saw that you logged it.
So it's basically Melvin Van Peebles uh wrote this story. No, he didn't write it. Sorry, he directed it. He didn't
Mhm.
write it, but it stars Godfrey Cambridge, and he's this insurance agent that's like racist, and I mean, he's a black man, but he's doing like whiteface. And it kind of reminds me of when Dave Chappelle would do, like, dress up like a white person on Chappelle's show.
Mhm.
And then he just wakes up like one day and he's like black, and then he has to like realize like what it's like to be black in America, and like the issues of racism and stuff. And so it was made 1970, so it's
Mhm.
got a lot of that type of politics, and it's also quite funny. And um I think there's really a lot to talk about as far as like how it addresses bigotry and how it kind of attacks all different types of racism, not just like the overt, like, you know, KKK cross burning, like just that type of racism, but also like the fetishization of like people for their race, like people that are like, oh, like I don't know, like there's this one character in particular as also like kind of cutting across like the performative anti-racism of like more like liberal people that also don't really want to like do anything to address racism. But I think Melvin Van Peebles and the writer Herman Roncher kind of do a lot with this film. And I mean, it is, yeah, he directed this before Sweet Sweetback, which is surprising because Sweet Sweetback is just so much more of like a different movie. But they are tied together when it comes to both being about both being about racial politics of that time. But yeah, so check that one out.
Sounds good.
But yeah, I guess I'm not really gonna talk about much else because we can probably move on, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, the only other two things I watched are related to this week's feature film.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, we can jump right into the news, and we'll start off with the trailers. Summer of Soul, which is a documentary directed by Questlove, which captures I'm not too familiar with it, but I think it's a string of concerts held at Woodstock that celebrated Black history, that will be examined within the documentary. That'll be out on Hulu on July 2nd, I believe. I'm not sure if it's getting a theatrical release or not, but there was just a trailer released for it. And there was also Pixar's new film, Luca, which will premiere on Disney Plus on June 18th with no extra cost. I mean, if you have the subscription, you still have to pay for that, but there's no premiere access type thing. And then lastly, there was the Tomorrow War teaser, which is from Chris McKay, who previously did the Lego Batman movie. This movie has Chris Pratt as the lead. It's a sci-fi action film. Will be out July 2nd on Amazon. And then jumping into the news, funny enough, Leonardo DiCaprio is set to produce a remake of an English remake of Another Round,
Called Don's Plum 2.
Yeah, I was gonna make that joke, but you beat me to it. No, it's really funny how it kind of worked out that way. But his company Appian Way, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, was able to get the rights to Another Round before. I don't really know specifically when they got it, but they got them. And it's already kind of receiving bad backlash. So I'm interested to see how this movie is going to move forward. And I will be honest, at first when I heard it, I was kind of against it. But then I thought about really what they could do with the casting. And then I was kind of like, okay, I think that could be pretty fun. So he is not confirmed to be in it, but he will produce it. So there is a chance that he might be in it. But I think it would be very, very, very interesting if they did get Kevin
Pussy
Connolly.
Posse.
Yeah, the Pussy Posse. If they got Tobey Maguire, Kevin Connolly, maybe Scott Bloom. I don't really know out of all the three of the actors, he's the one I'm least familiar with, or out of the four actors, I mean.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so that's kind of I think they could actually do something really cool. I'd love to see Tobey Maguire and Leonardo DiCaprio in a movie again, just because I think that'd be kind of interesting. And last night I was looking at it because it was kind of interesting. Tobey Maguire hasn't made a movie, like a live action movie, since like 2014, I think, with Pawn Sacrifice. So he's been away, but he's working on directing a movie. So that's also interesting. But to get back more on track, Daniel Pipsky's Ticket to Paradise has added Caitlin Deaver from Booksmart to the cast. That's the George Clooney, Julia Roberts kind of comedy that's in the works right now. Adam Wingard, and I don't remember if we talked about this last week. Did we talk about Adam Wingard returning to the MonsterVerse?
No, I don't think we talked about Adam
Okay.
Wingard returning to the monster. No, or maybe you sent me something about it, but I don't think we discussed it on the podcast.
Okay, because I just couldn't like quite remember. And if we did, it was rumored for him to return, but apparently he is confirmed, or not confirmed, but he is in talks to make the next MonsterVerse film, and the rumored title is Son of Kong. So I just think that's kind of funny, because I would love to see Kong meet a baddie in the with the outer world, or what I forgot what it was called. I think that would be very funny if we see Kong fall in love and have a child.
Everybody deserves eternal happiness with a significant other.
That is true. Dude, that's gonna kill me. What was the name of that thing? I don't know. Film adaptation. There will be a film adaptation of the novel Meet Me in Another Life, with Gal Gadot set to star in it and produce it. David Cronenberg is moving forward with his next film called Crimes of the Future, and has added Leah Seydoux, Kristen Stewart, and Viggo Mortensen to the cast. And I know I'm not, I know I'm not good with names, so excuse me in advance. Jean-May Colette Sierra adds Louis Katlukfu to the cast of Black Adam, and Louis, I think might be how you pronounce it, is famous for playing a young Rock in the show Young Rock. So yes. I don't know if he will be playing a young Black Adam in Black Adam, but it's interesting to kind of think about. Stephen Caple Jr. has added Dominic Fish back to the cast of Transformers 7. Kumail Nanjiani, thank you, and Emily V. Gordon are writing an adaptation of The Doubtful Guest, which is a book from 1957, I believe, and it is, I believe it's a ghost story, and they have tapped it director Andy Muschietti, to direct, and then Susan Romero, who is the wife of George A. Romero, who passed away not too long ago. She is working to finish Twilight of the Dead, which is the next film in the Night of the Living Dead kind of franchise. He was developing it when he passed away. They are currently in the stages of looking for a director at the moment. And then lastly, you thought we'd get away with no Marvel news, but man, there's always something. Marvel unveils the titles for their phase 4 or something, the next phase of films. And it's Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, The Marvels, which will be, I believe, a follow-up to Captain Marvel, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and this one's my favorite one because I think the title is kind of funny. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So that's our news for this week.
Yes.
And are you ready for an ad break?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, and we are back. So this is just to give people a little bit of backstory on why we decided to choose this one. I chose it because I had always heard the stories about this week's feature film is Don's Plum, which has Leonardo DiCaprio, Tobey Maguire, Kevin Connolly, uh, Scott Bloom, and a few other actors and actresses in it. And it has famously been banned in the U.S. and Canada. And so I'd always wanted to see this movie ever since I heard about it. I think I heard about it in middle school. I think through a Watch Mojo top 10 list.
Well, let's
But I,
go.
yeah, I can't quite remember for sure. Um, but I'd always been super interested in this film, so I decided to choose it. And in looking for a good version, to watch the film, I came across freedonsplum.com, which is run by the writer slash director, although not
Producer.
producer. Yeah. So he is said to have directed some of it. There's a documentary called The Curse of Don's Plum where he kind of says that he directed some of it, but he's not credited as director. Um,
His name is Dale
Dale,
Wheatley.
yeah, thank you. Dale Wheatley runs the site Free Don's Plum, and you can go there to find his email, which you can email him and ask him any questions that you might have about Don's Plum, and you can go through him with finding a copy of it. So that's what we did, and we were fortunate enough to be able to talk to Dale Wheatley and kind of ask him some questions. And I asked him if there's anything that he wanted me to read to the audience, and he sent me some stuff. But we'll read that kind of near, or I'll read it near the end, just because I think it'd be kind of an interesting thing to kind of end on. Um, but without further ado, Chris, what were your first impressions of Don's Plum?
Okay, so I think it is important to talk about the background information before we dive into the film. Because
Agreed.
But to be blunt, I really did not like Don's Plum. But to discuss the film, the documentary done by the New York Post, which I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I thought
New
it was
York
a little
Post,
cheesy.
well, I mean, the New York Post journalism ethics have definitely come into question. A lot of times, it's very much tabloidy, sensational. But with all that aside, it just kind of gives you information. There's some interviews with a lot of people that worked on it. But basically, these guys, made this film together with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire and all these people back in the mid 90s. I believe it was 95. And then, there was just a lot of drama about it and a bunch of lawsuits about it. And then they ended up losing the friendships with the guy that runs Free Don's Plum, Dale Wheatley, kind of like he says he's blacklisted. He can't work in Hollywood, all because of these lawsuits that Tobey Maguire and Leonardo DiCaprio spearheaded against this film. And it finally did get released in other territories commercially in 2001, oddly enough by Zentropa Entertainment, which is Lars von Trier's production company. And it premiered at the Berlin Film Festival. But he says that he still hasn't gotten any money from it. He's gotten like $180, I think.
Yeah. There's a little bit of backstory about why he hasn't been paid. And the story goes that David Stutman, which was one of the producers behind it, took a loan out from one of the writer's fathers. And the writer, I am pulling a blank on his name, but it does cover it in the documentary. It was like $70,000, I think, that they borrowed from this writer's father, and David Stutman never paid the father back, and then so the father sued him to get his money back, and David Stutman never showed up to the court hearings, so the judge favored inside of the father, And so now the father, I believe, owns all the rights to Don's Plum.
What
And I,
what a what a thing to own. No, I'm so
yeah.
jealous. Yeah, it's and so I want to so all this happened, and then so knowing all this backstory of the film and like how it's just was just kind of a film that these guys shot together and just kind of did kind of free form in that kind of uh idiosyncratic, like just kind of like recording conversations for hours and
Yeah.
hours and then with
I think it's
multiple
a
cameras.
interesting experiment.
Yeah, but
But and again, that doesn't I like the experiment and the idea behind it. And I just to speak for myself, I think I think the film is okay. I it's interesting to look at it. I don't know how often I will return to it, but you know,
uh
but continue. Sorry.
well, I just think that so with that all out of the way
Mhm,
and all that information, I mean, I do feel I'm not the documentary is a lot of hearsay.
mhm.
Because he didn't have them sign contracts,
Yeah.
which is like you should never do that if you're trying to run an actual production. But which is what it seemed like they were doing. I mean, like, they got all that money, they got
Mhm,
hired a bunch of people, and they were just, friends making a movie. And so I don't know how truthful it is, but I mean, I can also see it being fully truthful, knowing how a lot of other stories about the industry
mhm,
and people that are kind of sleazy in the industry and like what they've done to like get on top and stuff. That's all understandable, but at the end of the day, it's all hearsay. And it's like for this to be the hill for you to die on is just very weird because like this movie is like it's this movie is awful. Like I'm sorry, like I think that this movie is terrible. Like
mhm.
the dialogue is just it feels like it was, I mean, it was written by a bunch of 20-year-olds, and I mean it's all
Yeah.
improvised, and there are a bunch of 20-year-old horn dogs that like but it's just like some of the things like one scene in particular that they talk about is when Leonardo DiCaprio's character just like completely just demeans this girl that's at the whole movie pretty much takes place at the diner
Don's
called
Plum.
Don's Plum.
Mhm,
And so it's just kind of conversations at the table with a bunch of characters, and Leonardo DiCaprio just belittles and just like is just saying all this horrible derogatory stuff towards this girl. And they explain in the documentary that like all of like everything that you see with her acting, like and how like offended and just how sad she is with all the things that they're all the insults that he's hurling at her, like that's all like real, like because they apparently like they didn't want her to be in the movie anymore. So instead of
I
just being
there
what?
was there's a little comment that I don't remember who says it, but I think the story goes that Leonardo DiCaprio didn't think that she was kind of on par in terms of acting ability to be not to be in the film, but he just didn't think that she was as good as an actress, so they decided to write her out. And they went about doing it in a way where Leo's character would get in a fight with her character, but they didn't tell her that she didn't know that she was, if I'm remembering correctly, she didn't know that she was going to be written out. So her crying in the film is real. Like her storming out is real.
But to counterpoint, I
Hmm.
guess, is as horrible as that is,
Hmm.
I don't I think the dialogue is just bad. Like
Hmm.
because I mean you could easily make the same argument about Shelley Duvall's performance in The Shining, or just a myriad of other performances.
Yeah.
But I just think it's important to address because it's shitty, and it's like that's not how you treat people, and it's really
Yeah.
fucked up. Like uh but yeah. So I guess my point is that like the dialogue in general is just really bad because it's written by 20-year-olds that I don't know. It's all shot in black and white, which I there's a lot of exposure on the whites. Like they have this
Yes,
kind of like
there's a insane
glow.
amount of like saturation to me.
And I don't know why, because I think it kind of detracts from it.
Hmm.
Because it's like kind of hard to see people's like noses on their faces and stuff. And when a lot of the shots are close-up shots, I I don't think that that's a good idea. I don't think that it looks very, very good.
See, I was gonna say that in the shots where you see all of them together, it's really difficult to see, but I liked when they did the close-ups because they weren't as overexposed to me. But I mean, that was just how I was looking at it when I was watching it.
Hmm.
But I thought there's so many shots where they have the dinner table at the center of it, and I don't know if they put a lamp on the dinner table,
It
but it's
looks
just
like
like
that.
this like
Yeah.
beam at the center of the film. But um I mean, I could just attribute that to like young filmmakers maybe not knowing better. I don't know. I don't know if that was a stylistic thing. Um,
I mean,
it's a
it's
little
not the worst thing in the
distracting.
world.
Yeah,
I mean, props to them for shooting it in black and white, but
yeah, and on film too, which I believe was the only way to. I don't think digital photography was
I mean, they could
really
do
that big.
DV, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I don't know. What did you think? Because I do want to hear your perspective because I'm quite negative, but you seem to be less negative about this movie because I can go on, and I
Yeah.
will.
Yeah, no, and I'm interested to hear your viewpoint. I mean, it's tough for me to find a place to start because in a way it's a weird movie because it does kind of blur the lines of I know it's all improvised, um, but you know where do you draw the line between it being improvised and genuine? And that's where I get kind of hung up with a lot of the things that are um kind of said and done and because so I watched the movie before I watched the documentary, and I only knew stuff that I'd heard online about the film, and I only knew what Dale had told me through exchanging emails. Which again, I do want to say thank you to him for participating and giving and helping us find a copy and kind of giving his words and his side of the story through these emails. Um,
Yes, that like yet
yeah.
again, like I just want to say, like, yeah, I mean, he seems like a really like nice guy. Like,
Mhm. I don't
thank
think that
you.
your criticisms are I I, I think you're at some point you do kind of have to I don't know. But you continue with what you're saying. I'm sorry.
No, that's all. I was just
Mhm.
gonna say, like, I mean, I don't want to say, I don't, it's not a personal thing. It's just
Yeah.
this movie isn't very good. Like,
Um I watched the movie by itself because I wanted to watch it without the backstory, without everything surrounding it. I just kind of wanted to experience it as a film itself. Um and again it goes back to my thing about it's a cool it's like a cool experiment because of the way it was shot. Supposedly there were a few rounds of shooting and they only had Leonardo DiCaprio for one shot or not for one shot for one day and night or however you want to look at it. And so they shot all the scenes inside Don's Plum all that night with Leo, and then they went back and did supplemental stuff to kind of flesh out the subplots and the narratives and stuff like that. So I just think that I just think that it's okay, and I don't experiments are really cool, and I don't know if they will all it's not a guarantee that it will transfer well to make a great film. um and and I hate to make this comparison because it's a movie that I don't think is notorious upon our listeners, but me and Chris aren't too keen on I Want to Hold Your Hand, and that's kind of what this movie felt like a little bit to me. And while yes, they do feel like genuine characters, they're very, very bad characters, and I don't think that as a viewer there's a lot of ambition to see them come together when they do at the end. And it's like, and while Tobey Maguire isn't necessarily he's not a shitty human being, he's just really horny, and that's like kind of the beginning. That's how like the movie begins in this jazz club where he talks to like three different women.
Don't forget about the guy that sounds like Tom Waits at the jazz club for
Yeah.
some reason.
That's a weird little opening scene, but I was okay with it. I think some of the cuts that they did where it kind of jumps around and it's kind of cutting between Toby talking and him like reacting to the jazz musician and the dancers and everything. I think that was maybe a little convoluted, but I kind of liked it to kind of build out everything. So I have mixed feelings about it. Um, E from Entourage,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
he's not a terrible guy, but he doesn't really like,
Well, it's the whole.
and I'm sorry, I was just gonna finish this really quick.
Yeah.
It's all building up, and Leo is obviously the star of it all, but he's the worst person out of all of them. I mean, he's kind of like a monster. I mean, he berates people and then is like, you know what, I'm sorry, I actually care about you, and then berates him again. And all of them are kind of like laughing with him, and and when people do call him out on his stuff, they seem to kind of like go back to him. So like he's a conflicting character, and that I think that is interesting to watch. Um, but yeah, I feel like I'm a little scatterbrained because I'm trying to like kind of pull everything together. But what were you gonna say, Chris?
Oh, I was just gonna say like, there's a lot of the thing that I thought of the most was John Cassavetes' Husbands from 1970, because that's another movie that doesn't have likable characters. Like in that movie, you don't like Peter Falk, you don't like Ben Gazzara, you don't like John Cassavetes. They're all dicks. Like, but you see they're acting out as kind of they're acting out because their friend died and they're trying to recapture that like kind of camaraderie and like those moments in their youth that they had before. And so it's a little bit more understanding there. But in this, it's just people, 20 somethings acting out and just being shitty, but there's really no catalyst. Like there's a little bit of something at the end.
Yeah.
With that, but that feels a little post-mortem for me. It's like, okay, well, why didn't you introduce you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can spoil it. I think it's kind of hard. I think it would be more interesting if we just like kind of continue. Sorry.
Well, okay. Well, I was just gonna say like, so there's this one character, and I forget the actress's name, but she has like a thing with Leonardo DiCaprio's character, and then she ends up being like, okay, we're not gonna have sex in the bar, like and then they get into a little back and forth and are arguing, and then he's like, I don't want like, what did he say? He goes, girls make me sick, which is like. What are you like fucking 8? Like, but anyways, so she gets really mad and she's like sad, and then she's like, she does drugs in the bathroom, and then she's like, oh man, I just do drugs because I was molested, and like I'm trying to like fill this hole, and like this is a burden that I carry, and it's like all this heavy stuff just being like piled on right at the end, and then it's just like, and that's it, and it's like, why wasn't this stuff introduced before? Considering that, we're considering that it's like right before the movie just ends. And
yeah.
So I'm not. Cassavetes is in Husbands. The reason why all these characters are acting this way. It's apparent from the beginning, and that's what makes it it's a painful watch. It's painful in a different way. It's not painful because you're like, these people are awful, but I don't care about them at all, or I don't see why they're doing this. Like that one scene where they just like completely belittle like that working class guy.
Yeah, I didn't
It's like,
understand that.
okay, like, wow, you guys are really cool. Like,
well, to go back to what you were saying about, maybe there's a catalyst behind their behavior. There's one character that does have a moment early on in the film, Scott Bloom's character, and Leo calls him out for being bisexual or and openly talking about his sexuality, which makes him very nervous. But instead of kind of pushing back, he kind of just retreats for the rest of the film into a book, which I think there could have been something interesting there, because there obviously is a group dynamic at play, and I think they all do. I think they all are able to play off each other very well. Does that mean the dialogue is great? That can be brought into question, but I think they can kind of hold their own with each other, if that makes sense. But unfortunately, Scott Bloom's character, he just kind of stops. And then I think he has like a few more lines, but he doesn't feel as integral to the story. I think like other characters start to he gets important and he's not, in a weird way.
Yeah. It's like, it's just kind of like he's at the forefront at the beginning and then he just kind of disappears.
Yeah.
And that may be because, they were in the documentary, they were done with the movie, right? Like they didn't have any loose ends that they wanted to fix in reshoots or anything. Right?
From the documentary, if I'm remembering correctly, in like Chris said, this is all the filmmaker's side of the story. And I don't think like Toby or Leo, they have given their side, but they don't really continue to talk about it. They just kind of like nix it whenever it comes up.
Because
so
why would they?
They're
past.
Yeah, they have but the story goes that they shot all their scenes with Leo. They shot a whole thing in Don's Plum. And then they brought the rest of the cast back to do a second shoot, which added like the jazz scene and I think all of the moments in the bathroom. I'm not sure. I should have asked Dale Wheatley. I should have emailed him about that, but I didn't think about that to now because I don't believe that there is a Leo scene in the bathroom. But I do kind of like the bathroom scenes because they do flesh out the characters more.
I do wish that they fixed the sound mixing in the bathroom scenes, though.
Yeah, it is a little jarring because it's a noticeable difference. But I'm kind of willing. I'm a little less lenient on that, or I mean, I'm a little bit more lenient on that because it is such a low budget movie. But I stand with you there. But I can see why maybe they weren't able to fix it. There's all these bathroom scenes that just kind of they cut to in the middle of them talking, and it's almost as if it's like the characters' inner dialogue and them kind of taking in the scene or kind of building out what they're thinking. And I really do like those scenes, but I don't remember, like I'm not 100%, but I don't believe that there is a Leo bathroom scene that kind of further explores what he's going through. So I would say, they shot a lot to kind of flesh out and build it up. I don't know if there was a third round of reshoots though. I don't think they I don't think they reshot anything, if I'm being 100%. But then again, that is something that we can ask Dale Wheatley. And he said that if we had any questions, we can ask him. where is he gonna go with that? Sorry to backtrack just a little bit to complete my thought about my comparison between I Want to Hold Your Hand and this movie. Or maybe I did. I'm just misremembering, but they're just not very good people, and it's hard to kind of root for them and want them, you know, to want them to come together. That was my big thing. Is you know, hangout movies are some of my favorite movies of all time, but I don't know if I want to hang out with these characters per se. It doesn't really have the appeal to it that maybe, Fast Times at Ridgemont High or Dazed and Confused has, So
And that's why I think the Cassavetes comparison is warranted, because if you don't want to hang out with these characters, and if that's the intention, which is what I mean, I think it is. Like, I don't think that you're not supposed to like these characters, but the catalyst for why they are not likable or the reasoning behind it, or the humanity in them is not really there. And I don't know. I don't want to make the same cyclical argument, but that's basically my 2 cents.
I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I kind of wanted to add to it. If I can talk about the kind of controversy just for a moment. And I think you kind of you mentioned this. I don't think it's necessarily fair to Dale Wheatley, Artie Robb, any of the producers or writers of this project. I don't think it's necessarily fair what happened to them.
No, yes.
Kind of wanted to bring up something that I find kind of interesting, because in the documentary The Curse of Don's Plum, there's a lot of footage about the deposition that Tobey Maguire and Leonardo DiCaprio gave. And within that, Leonardo DiCaprio says, hey, I didn't know that it was a feature film. And again, I'm only operating off of the knowledge that I know and that I learned from the documentary. So I could be wrong. I just want to put that out there. But apparently there was a screening of Don's Plum when they finished it at an MGM Plaza or something, and all the cast came, and these high up film industry people came, and Leo saw the film as a feature film, but then testified to it never being a feature film. I just find odd. And again,
I mean, that's the thing, is that
it's hard to say with a lot of the stuff, because we don't know the full story.
He'd be under oath too.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like, he wouldn't I don't think he'd perjure himself.
But I don't know, there's multiple accounts of him being there.
And then Tobey Maguire said that it was going to be a feature film in his deposition.
Yeah. So it's, it's just such a weird thing that happened. And
the reason why he probably didn't want this movie to get released here is because there's that one scene where he eats his boogers.
Exactly. I will say this, dude. Leo had the biggest rip in his pants that I've ever seen anybody wear. Literally the whole crotch is ripped open, which I just thought was kind of funny.
What about his sick chain wallet thing?
Very much a product of the time. And just to kind of briefly touch on it, if we look at the narrative of Tobey Maguire kind of orchestrating the whole thing, which is the narrative that The Curse of Don's Plum kind of crafts, that he didn't want this movie to come out because it would make him look bad, and it doesn't fit in with his current kind of persona that he's trying to build as an actor. I think that is somewhat believable if he's trying to be this all-American boy, and then there's this film with him and his friends, and they're throwing, derogatory terms all around and smoking and, all this stuff. So I don't know. It's interesting to look at, but like I said, I would kind of like to hear Leo and Toby's kind of side, although I don't think that's very likely, because of the efforts that they've gone to silence this film and the filmmakers. There's obviously a lot of bad blood, but um, did you have any other kind of final thoughts on Don's Plum?
Um, yeah, the
Mm.
just it's not insightful. It's just kind of boring, and it's just kind of I mean, I'm happy I've seen it, but
Mhm.
I almost feel like if it did come out, then people would know about it even less, you know. Like
Yeah.
it still exists as kind of like this legend or this like thing, you know.
Hmm.
You can't get it. So, you know, it's like the day, well, it's not as hard to find as the day the clown cried, but
Hmm.
it it's something that people know of just because of how it's like a Streisand effect kind of thing.
Hmm.
And it's not very good. So don't watch it. Just read about it. That's what I
I'm
tell you.
I'm gonna say it's a light recommend for me, just because just to like kind of see it is my thing. Um, but there's something I kind of wanted to throw in about, say this movie did come out like you're saying, and you're like, oh, I don't know if it would really, if it would be as popular as it is, being the kind of notorious movie that it is. um I I don't like, I have very mixed feelings about how, if this movie had come out, would it really have changed these actors' lives? Like, Leo was pretty much already set. He was going to be fine. Toby was already on his way, which he hadn't done anything too big yet, but he was on the the project. He was going towards it.
Fulton, don't even say, you know, I don't even want to live in a world where Kevin Connolly is an E in Entourage. So
Dude,
if that
yeah,
affected the
we haven't even talked
trajectory of
about
Kevin Connolly's
that.
career, then I'm happy that this movie never got released.
um Dude, it's so fun. I mean, Kevin Connolly he's literally baby E. Like, he's just like, he's baby E, and it's now that's why I recommend. No, I'm just kidding, but it's so funny. There's an interview on another podcast called the Hugging the Cactus, or the Cactus I Hugged, or I'm sorry, I'm not uh, you know I'm forgetting the name, but it is something along the lines of the cactus that I hugged. And the lead of that podcast interviewed Dale Wheatley. And I think the host of the podcast says it's like Entourage before it was Entourage, and I can't think enough about just how funny that comparison is. Um, but yeah, I don't know if it would, it's tough to say if it would have changed these actors' lives, but I think some of the people that are kind of still big proponents of it do think that it really would have, like, given these actors another big notch in their belt. And I don't know if the performances are that strong. I think they're decent. I think everyone's trying. That's very clear to see. um
I did want to bring up one other thing actually with Kevin
mhm.
Connolly's character
Yeah.
and the whole thing about like how
Mm,
he met
yeah.
that like director that he auditioned for a role, and then she didn't get the part, but he saw her at Dawn's Plum at the bar, and so then he walked up to her and he was like, oh hey, like, you know, I'm just saying hey. And then she was like, I want to give you a part actually in my next film. And then she was like, also I want to have sex with you, and I want to have sex with you a lot, and I really want to have sex with you, Kevin Connolly, I really want to have sex with you. And she it wasn't, you know, she used other words, but I think that this movie uses the word fuck like somebody first discovered the word. Like it's just like like it's like but that scene's kind of a good showcase of that. And then also like what was the point of that? Like it's just kind of like
I thought they were trying to kind of touch on
the predatory nature of the industry.
Yeah, but it's not. It's seen more as like, dude, you get to bang a chick. That's cool.
That's what I mean. It's like that's what I mean. Is like it's totally like not like, oh, this is really messed up because of the power imbalance of this. It's more just like, yo, dude, that's fucking wild, dude. She's really hot, bro.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it makes you think, it makes you wonder a little bit more like, well, this movie almost did get picked up by Miramax. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There, and then there's also with I guess it's a story about young actors. I wasn't sure, or is Kevin Connolly the only
Kevin
actor?
Connolly's the young actor.
I wanted to say there was like, they kind of briefly talked like, oh man, you've been trying to, I don't know. I was just gonna say there could have been some interesting commentary there on that, but we didn't end up with that. Or is it okay if I read what Dale wanted me to read to the audience really quick?
Let's hear what Dale wrote.
It is gonna take me a second to get through because it is a good bit. Okay. Don's Plum was never a short film. Filmmakers can't. This is from Dale Wheatley. Sorry, the writer producer of Don's Plum. Just to reiterate, Don's Plum was never a short film. Filmmakers can't just turn short films into feature films. That's impossible. RD, Rob, and I, along with our editing team, simply cut together the film that we shot, nothing more. Although they, as in Leo and Toby, would like to give you the impression that we invented some extra film length out of thin air. But the truth is evident in the film. Don's Plum was an experimental film, and the dialogue was almost entirely improvised, which was seldom done in America in the 90s. In preparation, we wrote all the characters, their arcs, their histories, their conflicts with each other, and they were all a work of fiction. That's an important point because of another myth attached to the film, that these actors were being themselves. We all collaborated to create the characters in the movie. Regarding the conflict that led to the film being blocked, Leo did not stop this film because he didn't like it or because he thought it was bad. In fact, he liked Don's Plum a lot, so much that he brought it to his agency for representation. We all recognized its flaws, but Don's Plum is a damn fine indie film, especially in 1996, with an auspicious debut for both RD and me. Leo did interfere with Don's Plum and destroy our lives and careers because he believed a lie. Toby told him, which was that I confessed to a plot or threat to pit the press against Leo if Leo did not support Don's Plum. It's a laughably ridiculous lie. Why would I sabotage my own film that way? But Leo believed it, and there's nothing I could do to change his mind. You may know some of the interviews I've done over the last few years. There's a documentary by the New York Post ridiculously titled The Curse of Don's Plum. There is no curse surrounding Don's Plum. It's an egregious abuse of power by the world's biggest movie star. Egregious. I'm so sorry. I did a Vanity Fair piece a few years ago. I've done podcasts on a few YouTube channels. The point is that none of them got the story right, so I decided to write a book telling the entire story behind Don's Plum. It's currently titled Too Real, a Hollywood Memoir. I'm in the editing process of now, and I hope to finish it in this year. So you can share that info too if you like. Sorry. If I had one wish, it would be that people who sit down to watch this film set aside the dubious history and give the film a chance to stand on its own. That's the most important thing I hope to convey. Treat Don's Plum like any other film and let it at least try to take you through a journey. If people do that, then the themes and little arcs that we crafted in this slice of life piece might get through. And whether someone loves, hates, or becomes indifferent to the film, there's a chance they will at least respect the work. Which brings me to my last point. I have seen many comments mischaracterizing how I feel about Don's Plum. I do not believe that Don's Plum is a masterpiece. I do not believe Don's Plum was necessarily groundbreaking, although I would say that we did some pretty cool stuff with improv and we pushed some boundaries on the indie production. Over 70% of Don's Plum was shot in just 3 nights, all in 16 millimeter and with A-list talent. No one was doing that in 95. But despite all that, Don's Plum is a rugged, micro-budget experimental film that went right, and it was supposed to be the beginning of our experiment, not the end. We all lost on whatever was going to get created next. I think the audience would have enjoyed more from us. I just kind of wanted to read that. Just to give him, another chance to kind of speak his truth. And I find it interesting as well. So yeah. Are you ready to announce next week's title? Feature film, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So our feature.
Oh,
there's thunder. Yeah, there's thunder going on. It was just very.
So that's what that was. I was curious. I'm sorry. I hope everything's okay.
No, yeah, we were in tornado warning actually earlier today.
Boy. It's going around Georgia.
Yeah. But next week's film is Robert Altman's McCabe and Mrs. Miller. So from 1971. So yeah. Unfortunately, we'll be talking about our first Warren Beatty lead performance isn't going to be Ishtar, but we're getting that one's coming around. Don't worry, guys.
Just to throw out something in the future, and it ties into the theme of the episode a little bit. Speaking of hard to find films, me and Chris have transferred Texasville, and we now have a copy of it, and we will be reviewing that sometime in the near future. We got the Laserdisc, and we were able to watch it and everything.
Yeah, the director's cut Laserdisc. Yeah,
the director's cut of Texasville, and we will be having Reagan Jones come back, and that'll be like a one-off. It's not going to be like a main episode. So yeah, I'm really excited to do that. Just wanted to throw that out there for people who might be interested in that.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, guys, and I hope you have a good rest of your week. And if you're doing finals and whatnot, good luck on those, and stay wavy.
Agreed. Stay safe. Stay with the entourage.